Hello, hey ladies. How are you today? I know I sent an invite out in the group for this live training, and I went to go live on the invite that I sent out, and there is no way for me to go live in this invite that I sent out. It's weird. I'm still looking at it. I can't find the go live button. It's like not being offered. So that's weird. So I just decided to go live in the group as opposed to going live through the event. So hi as everybody's coming on. I'm so glad that you are joining me today. Say hi. Let me know who's on with me. I would really appreciate it. Hey, Jazz. Hey, how you doing, Jazzy? Just say hi as everybody comes on. Thank you for joining me today. So I'm going to come on to talk about why do you sabotage your efforts to overcome anxiety? Because that is what, good, I'm glad you're doing good. That's what we do. We sabotage our own efforts to overcome anxiety. Instead of holding my phone throughout this whole process, excuse me one moment. I have a stand on my phone. Excuse my hand. Oops. Okay. I'm sorry. I got you back. All right. Hey. Hi, Deb from West Tennessee. How are you? Excuse me as I'm just trying to do my... What is going on? Okay. You know what it did? It turned my stuff around. Hold on. Why? How did everything get so turned around? There I go. Oh, I'm having such difficulties today. Hi, everybody. Hi, Lisa. Okay. So what happened was I went through the event, and the event didn't have a go live button, and I don't know why. There I am. Oh my god, I'm trying to put light on me because I feel I'm so dark. So as you come on, say hi. Hi, Erin. Hi. Hey, everybody. Oh, from Massachusetts. All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming on. All right, we're going to talk about sabotage. Because that's what we do. We sabotage ourselves. You've heard me say it's you versus you. It's always you versus you. All right? So why do we do this? Why do we sabotage ourselves? Well, first of all, I like to do everything with definitions because I always want us to be on the same page. In other words, I don't want you to be wondering. I want you to be wondering, not be wondering, what is she talking about? You know, I want you to fully understand what it is I'm talking about. So sabotage, what do I mean by sabotage? What does that mean? This is my first live. Can they be replayed on playback? Yes. They are always in the replay. I do lives every Thursday at 3. It is being recorded. And then the replay lives in the feed as long as everybody's watching it, or I take it and I put it in the guide section of the group. I have a whole library of lives. There's like over 100 of them. So, and I wish I can send links out, but Facebook has taken away my ability to do that. So that is why I have to tag you inside as opposed to sending you links. So I'm about to give a definition of sabotage because that's what we're talking about today as you come on and off. So sabotage, what do I mean by that? So when we sabotage ourselves, what we're doing is we're actually causing ourselves from having success. Yes, we're absolutely causing ourselves to not have success. Now, I know that sounds so weird to you because we want to overcome anxiety, right? Who here actually wants to be anxious? Nobody wants to be anxious. So why would you sabotage yourself, right? But we do. We absolutely do. Sometimes we do it very consciously, and sometimes we're doing it unconsciously. So let me give you an example. So consciously, how are you sabotaging yourself? So let's say you're on a diet, right? And you want to lose some weight, and you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to watch what I eat, of course, count my calories. And the next thing you know, you're having like a bowl of ice cream. So how is that bowl of ice cream going to help you with your diet, right? Because ice cream's not the best thing, or eating cookies or cake, right? Probably not going to help you to lose the weight. And you know what you're doing. You know you're having these cakes and cookies, right? And you know it's not going to help you to lose the weight. So that is a conscious way of sabotaging. So now what is an unconscious way of sabotaging? An unconscious way of sabotaging is like, okay, let's say you're at work, you have a deadline. Your boss says, I need this in by 3:00 today. And you're working on it, and or maybe you're not, maybe you're not working on it, but like, maybe the thing is, you're working on it so much that it's like you're being a perfectionist, okay? So, but you don't know that you're doing that. It's just that you keep checking yourself. You keep checking and you're looking over it over and over again because you just want it to be just so. You don't want to make any mistakes. It's got to be perfect. It's going to your boss. It's got to be. So it's not that you're doing this so consciously. You're going to be late now maybe for your deadline. Not because of the fact that it's a conscious thing. You're unconsciously making it so perfect because you're afraid of failure. You're afraid of sending this in with so many mistakes. It's a fear of failure. So you would rather just keep looking at it and it be perfect, which there's no such thing, than have it go on time. So that may be like more of a unconscious way of sabotaging yourself, your perfectionism. So as you come on, ladies, say hi. We're talking about sabotaging yourself, but this is sabotaging your efforts to overcome anxiety. So we're going to get into that. So sabotaging is just keeping yourself from having that success of overcoming anxiety. So, but what is the origin of all this? How does this happen? Where does this come from? So this actually comes from the time we were young little girls, our family history. Did we come from a dysfunctional family? A family where we did not have much security. So basically it's, how did we connect? So when we're raised by certain people, we surround ourselves by certain people, okay? These people lead us to have certain beliefs and thoughts, and we learn how to connect and have relationships when we're with these people. So connection with our loved ones, what it does is it affects how we connect with others, okay? And we learn from these people who we surround ourselves with throughout our whole life. Now, I'm having a good day with my anxiety. Oh, Misty, well, that's wonderful. Thank you for letting us know. It's good to hear that, you're having some good days. So, when we've been talking the past couple weeks, actually, probably the past month, I've been talking a lot about mindset. I've been talking to you about thoughts and beliefs, expectations, about your attitude and assumptions. That all makes up your mindset. Last week we talked about the beliefs, the limiting beliefs, right? So this is all passed down, learned from and passed down from your family history. So affect what really, kind of brings you to having this self-sabotaging personality could be from what you've learned from the times that you were a child. So childhood trauma, that impacts how you connect with others. If you trust in others, it impacts how you cope with things in life. So are you going to start avoiding situations, because based on your past experiences, what we experience in the past will affect what we believe and how we think, right? So, of course, if our mindset is affected, we're going to start as things come on into our life, our experiences, how our mindset is going to tell us whether we're going to face this or we're going to avoid it, right? Do we have attachment issues? In other words, these are where you just like have a hard time forming a relationship, based on, of course, how you were raised with your family, with your loved ones, the connection you had with them. So your family history, childhood trauma, attachment issues, all of these will really affect whether you sabotage yourself later on in life, okay? And basically, why do we do this? Because it's always we're protecting ourselves. Our mind and our body, and you hear me say this a lot, mind and body work to protect you, to help you to survive, right? So we sabotage ourselves because it's a way of protection. We're trying not to get hurt. We're trying to keep ourselves safe from rejection, abandonment. And I know it's very counterintuitive. It's super counterintuitive because when you think about it, we want to overcome anxiety, don't we? I mean, like, nobody wants to remain anxious, right? So why would we sabotage ourselves to overcome anxiety? Because that's exactly what we want to do. Why are we sabotaging ourselves, right? Because the subconscious mind, right, it's working to keep you safe from what even though what you're going through is painful, okay? At least it's what your mind knows. Your mindset is what it knows. It's what's familiar. It's what it's used to. Change is hard, right? And now if you make a change, although it's going to make your life better, although you're going to have peace, you're going to have happiness, if you keep going to overcome anxiety, you will eventually get there to peace and happiness. However, the in-between, the getting there, the change you got to make, that could be hard. That could be uncomfortable. Right? That is what your mind is protecting you from, that uncomfortableness, that change. Because to you, it could be threatening in that moment. I want to overcome anxiety, right? I really, 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 really do. But what do I have to do to get there? Wow, that sounds hard. That is really uncomfortable. I don't know about this. And that's what may keep you stuck. So what we do is we wind up sabotaging ourselves. So what ultimately happens is, and I'm trying to look for, okay. So what we do is we sabotage ourselves, but we sabotage ourselves with saboteurs. Saboteurs, okay? You ever heard of, well, I know you heard of this, the voices in your head, right? What you think about, we know our beliefs and our thoughts, they're very, very important. But a lot of times, right, we feel we have no control of what we're thinking, right? We just hear these voices in our head. It's like, have you ever heard of like, you got the good person and well, the good devil and the angel on your shoulders? Have you ever heard of this? And who do you listen to, the angel or the devil? Well, you know you want to always listen to the angel, right? But you hear these voices in your head going back and forth telling you, do this, no, do that, or do this, or do that. So these voices in your head, right, they are like habitual mind patterns. They're called saboteurs, all right? They're like your limiting beliefs, those beliefs that you hold on to that can keep you stuck, right? So what they do is because you're listening to these voices in your head, right? It tells you how to react to the challenges that you're facing. They generate those negative emotions that you're feeling. And ultimately, what you're feeling is stress and anxiety. And you're sabotaging what you do to feel better, because at least these patterns that you have in your head are normal. They're familiar. Can you put a 1 in the chat if any of this is making sense to you? Because I don't want to go on unless this is making sense. Do I need to bring clarity to anything that I just said? Put a 1 if this is making sense. Talking about sabotaging and saboteurs, and we have voices in our head telling us. Boy, I got 4 1s from Deb. All right, Lisa, Jill, thank you, ladies, for telling me this. All right, Shanika, great, thank you. All right, the saboteurs. I'm gonna just go over briefly. Now, according to positive psychology, and I am reading this from a resource, ladies. No, I do not have this memorized. Okay, thank you, Missy, January, Terry, thank you for telling me that. Okay, we have these voices in our head that are directing us and guiding us, that we got from our beliefs, things that we knew from the time that we were little girls. The first saboteur is called the judge. And see if any of these apply to you. And I know they do, but see what sounds familiar to you, okay? Now, you're not just one of these. You're gonna, maybe all of them resonate with you, maybe just 1 or 2, but you're gonna resonate with these. So the first one is called the judge, okay? The judge beats you up over mistakes. You obsessively worry and fixate on negativity. Now, the judge is a saboteur that sounds like, you're an idiot. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? You're such an idiot. That is the judge. Does that sound like you? Everybody should see your comment, Shannon. All right. The stickler. The stickler is also known as the perfectionist. Okay? Your perfectionism and order take away, are taken too far. And so, in other words, you sabotage yourself. You say things like, it's got to be done this way. And it must be, and it has to be, and it should be. It's got to be perfect. Or are you the pleaser? Helping and pleasing and rescuing others to gain acceptance and affection. So that's going to sound more like, only if I help you are you going to like me. So the restless saboteur, okay, is in search for constant busyness or excitement or greater excitement. And basically a person who is a restless saboteur, it sounds like, I'm busy and I have no time to rest. I just have no time. The hypervigilant. The hypervigilant is constantly fearing and has anxiety about change. That was me. Okay? Constantly feeling and has anxiety about change. Okay? In other words, I could never do that. I don't have what it takes. What if something goes wrong? How about the hyper-rational? Intense and exclusive focus on the rational processing of everything. So that sounds like feelings don't matter. Let's just be rational here. Yeah, you're seeing yourself in this, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Lisa's a pleaser. Shanika, what's you, Shanika? The hypervigilant? Allie's a hypervigilant. I have more than one. Yeah, we all do. We all do. Don't be afraid to say that. So the hyperachiever, self-respect reliant on constant high achievement and performance. So that sounds like if I don't get a good grade, I'm bad. I'm bad. The victim, emotional and temperamental to gain attention and affection. So that sounds like I'm so overwhelmed and sad and no one cares. You play victim. The controller. This is one I never related to, I have to say. Needs to control situations and others' actions to reduce anxiety. And it sounds like you need to do what I say. Maybe a lot of you can relate to that, because I know the lack of anxiety is all about control, the lack of control. But I don't know, for some reason I don't relate to that. I don't know why. But anyway, and the last one is the avoider. Now the avoider, that's one I think a lot of us definitely can relate to. Avoids, I can't even read this, that's weird. Avoids unpleasant and difficult tasks. So in other words, you are like, I'll do it later. Yeah, I'll take care of this some other time, not right now. Like, it's never the right time. You just avoid it because it probably being too hard and. So those are called saboteurs, and those are the mindsets. Okay, the little voices in your head that are gonna direct you and generate that negative feedback. Okay, that is ultimately going to cause such stress and anxiety for you, where you're going to start sabotaging your ways and the way you do things. So how do you know that you're sabotaging yourself? I mean, let's build some awareness around this. I mean, because you might be like, well, I just heard you say, like, describe me. You just described me to a T, but I don't feel like I'm sabotaging my ways. I mean, I've tried things to overcome anxiety, yeah, and I did find things hard or things didn't work out for me, but I just don't see how I'm sabotaging myself. All right. So what are some things that you can look for that can tell you, oh yeah, you're sabotaging yourself? Because I was like that too, ladies. Like, the first time I ever heard, oh yeah, you're keeping yourself stuck, you're really keeping yourself from overcoming anxiety. And I don't know if I read that or somebody told me that, but the first time I heard that, I was like, no way. I mean, I want this gone. And there is no way I'm doing this to myself, right? Who can relate to that? Put it too in the chat if you really feel like I know that I have these mindset things going on, these saboteurs, but I just don't know how I'm sabotaging myself. Like, I just don't know how to tell. Put it too, if you really just still confused how you're sabotaging yourself. Okay. Great. Yeah, Missy, you. Okay. I mean, I'm sure some of you are just so still confused on how you're doing it to yourself when you so badly want to overcome this. So, some things to look for. Okay? So, do you often ask yourself things like, why aren't things going my way? You're always second guessing and doubting yourself. Because if you're someone who does that, you probably are sabotaging yourself. So the other things are, I used to always do that, but slowly turning that around. Okay, good. I'm glad you're turning things around, Jasmine. Okay, so, the other things could be like, you have goals, like, I'm going to overcome anxiety and I'm going to do everything I can to overcome anxiety, but then you're not reaching your goals because all the things that you're learning to overcome anxiety, for some reason you're not implementing them. For whatever reason, you're not trying to reach your goals. In other words, you don't feel the motivation to do it, or you're hearing what is necessary, but you're really not implementing, if that makes sense. So maybe you're not really doing much to reach your goals. You're not doing everything it takes to reach your goals. And you're finding yourself doing things opposite of what you really want. So I really, really want to overcome anxiety. But for some reason, I'm not doing what I want to do, what needs to be done, what should be done to overcome anxiety. What is keeping you from overcoming anxiety? Maybe there's a part of you that believes that you just don't deserve to be at peace, deserve to be happy. So you don't behave in ways that support that. And if you're somebody who's avoiding what makes you uncomfortable, you can see how maybe you're sabotaging your way to overcome anxiety. Because in order to overcome anxiety, sometimes you got to make yourself a little more uncomfortable to get more comfortable, if that makes sense. So if you're avoiding things that make you uncomfortable, I can understand that. Or maybe your goals are not set big enough. Maybe you do have goals, but you're not really, all right, so your goal is to overcome anxiety, but maybe you're not really doing much about it. So you didn't set goals that are, your expectations are too low. And how do you know you're sabotaging yourself? Because you're just trying to control everything. You're trying to take over everything. You're trying to control everything. Control how, when, why. And, it's just, you're just doing too much of control and not giving yourself grace. You're not letting go of outcomes. You want everything done in your time, when you say and how, and it just doesn't work that way. You also know you're sabotaging yourself when you're making a lot of excuses. Tons of excuses. That's why yesterday I did that post. You know, I wanted you to think about the things that you're telling yourself. You know, when it comes to overcoming anxiety. Are you making excuses? What excuses are you telling yourself? So, Allie, I tried, but the physical symptoms of anxiety, I can't. I know, Allie. The physical symptoms of anxiety can be hard. I mean, it's hard to feel them, but they're just anxiety. You know, if you understood specifically what anxiety was and understood that if you just can let anxiety take its course and diffuse the anxiety, those symptoms will go away. I can be doing good, then physical symptoms come and it throws me back. It's always those symptoms. I understand. But awareness is key. And I'm telling you, the lack of awareness is what's keeping you stuck. So how do you know when you're sabotaging? Because you're doing things that don't coincide with what you believe and value. So in other words, you know, you might believe that to overcome anxiety, you have to exercise. That's a good one because I keep promoting exercise and I keep getting a lot of excuses why you can't exercise. So, you know exercise is good for anxiety and you know it's good for so many other things, and you believe it's good, but yet you'll come up with tons of excuses as to why you can't. Even though it may not be because of a physical thing or whatever. It's just, I don't have time. You have to make time. So how do you know you're sabotaging? Because maybe you're comparing yourself. You compare yourself so much with other people. In other words, what you're doing is, okay, being in a Facebook group. I love the fact that you're all in my group, okay? And I love it that you're all supporting one another, because that's what it's all for, right? But the con, okay, there's a lot of pros, but the con is when you're in a group and you're listening too much to what other women are saying, okay? So you hear another woman say, I've made so much progress, right? So what do you think are all the comments? The comments are, what did you do? How did you make progress? What are you doing? What are you doing, right? Because you're in so much pain. You just want to know what this woman did that she had so much progress, right? So now what you're doing is you're listening to her say, well, I did A, I did B, I did C, and I got so much progress. So then you go, oh, but I've done A, B, and C. Or you say, okay, good, thanks. And then you go do A, B, and C, and you don't make the progress she made. So then you start beating yourself up. Because why didn't I make that progress? She made the progress, or, she did this, and I already did that. And it didn't do anything for me, so what am I doing wrong? So sometimes comparing yourself can hurt you. And you sabotage, because then you start thinking something's wrong with me. That person's making progress and I'm not. Or, too much comparison. That's why, ladies, when you ask me, okay, how long did you deal with anxiety and when did you overcome anxiety? I'm very hesitant in talking about when, because I feel like you're going to start comparing yourself to me. Because as far as I know, I'm the only one in the group who has completely overcome anxiety. Completely. okay? I don't have issues with anxiety anymore. I'm off all medications. I'm sleeping well. I'm no longer depressed. I don't have any issues with anxiety. I mean, the women that I've worked with, they're a close second. You know, sometimes they still come back to me. They've had a setback, and, you know, it's a process, you know? So, however, everybody tells me they want to be like me, they want to be where I am now, and you will be, okay? But the way to get there is not in comparison, okay? I mean, yes, everything I do in the group is what I did and how you will get there, but you get there in your timing, okay? Where we all process things and we implement things, process things differently, all right? And it, you know, it depends on the support and the implementation. It's just a lot of things, the mindset. So, and that's why for the group, we're there to support one another, okay? But we're not to compare ourselves with one another in the way of, if that woman did A, B, and C, and I do that, I should have the same results. It doesn't go that way. All right? So that's something that can sabotage you negatively in that way. And the other thing that could be sabotaging you is if you're doing if you're taking on behaviors such as, you know, like drinking, smoking, doing drugs, not the ones from the doctor, but, you know, the drugs that you do not get over the counter. You know, doing things, behaviors that you're dealing with your pain, but this is a type of pain, you know, this is a quick fix. This helps you relieve the pain momentarily for a short period of time, but ultimately it all comes back. But you will be sabotaging your ways if you keep in that behavior. The other thing is negative talking, negative self-talking. If you're doing a lot of negative self-talking, that will ultimately keep you in sabotage. You know, let's go over what causes so how do you know you're sabotaging is what I just went over. Let's really get into what causes the self-sabotage. So, you know, we know that the family history, okay, makes us more prone to self-sabotage. But what will really get you to self-sabotage? Like, what are some of those characteristics to look for? So as I was saying, negative self-talk is definitely one of those. Your beliefs, your thinking, right? If you're holding on to beliefs and thinking, things like, I'm not good enough, I can't cope, I don't have what it takes. These are the things that you're holding on to about yourself, others in the world, that are going to keep you stuck where you are and keep you from having success and reaching the goals that you want, let's say, to overcome anxiety. Because you keep talking yourself out of it, whether you're giving excuses or, you know, you heard me say last week, right? Or maybe you heard me, it was the week before, but you cannot overcome anxiety with the same mindset that gave you the anxiety, right? You have to change the mindset, whether it's the beliefs, the thinking, the expectations you're having, the assumptions you're making, what I miss? Beliefs, thoughts, expectations, assumptions, attitude, the attitude you're having. You can't keep it all the same and expect to have a change, right? So what's going to cause self-sabotage is you not making a change. Low self-esteem. Self-esteem is how you feel about yourself, right? This also goes to loving yourself, right? So loving yourself, having self-esteem. Because when you're not having good self-esteem, what you ultimately do is like you will avoid things so that you don't disappoint. You're afraid of disappointment and failure because you can't handle it. You don't have the confidence. Also, there's the fear of failure, all right? The fear of not meeting up to those expectations. We talked about expectations. We have such high expectations, high standards, right? So somebody who has the fear of failure would rather not try and make up a whole lot of excuses than to try and not meet their own expectations or the expectations of others. Which is kind of weird because failure really is not trying at all. But it's weird that somebody who fears failure would rather not try than to have this, not meet this expectation that they have on themselves. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Is anybody relating to any of this? Anybody have problems with, I spoke so far about self-talk. I spoke so far about having low self-esteem and needing self-love, fear of failure. Let's talk about the fear of success. Believe it or not, you can sabotage yourself, okay, for the fear of success. Because now what I promise, okay, is that if you were to work with me, all right, you're going to feel different. You're going to learn things about anxiety that there's no way you're going to be the same person after we work together, okay? You're going to know things that you didn't know before, right? But the thing is, to have success, you need to take responsibility for who you are and how you are acting in life, reacting in life, responding to the things in life. Because what you need to understand is that, see, a lot of times we blame, okay, who we're being on other people, right? We say we're anxious because of our husbands or our children or our bosses, or we'll blame things outside of us and not taking responsibility that it's because of what's happening on the inside. So we fear that responsibility. It's pressure. When we have success, right, we take on more responsibility and pressure. That puts more pressure because, see, we think if our husband was responsible for our anxiety, that takes pressure off of us because we'll just get him to change and we won't be anxious anymore, right? Right? Does that make sense? But knowing it's an inside job, that's more pressure on you now. He doesn't have to change. You have to change. Does that make sense, ladies? Fear of success. That puts more pressure, more expectations on yourself. So why wouldn't you, sabotage yourself? Because it's hard, right? Let's talk about perfectionism. Perfectionism, right? You don't feel good enough. You're so self-critical. so self-critical. Everything has to be just right, perfect, right? But the thing is, there's no such thing. You're waiting for the perfect time to overcome anxiety. I actually have had women, and I'm sorry if this was you, but I've had women tell me they will work with me when they feel better about their anxiety. They will work with me when they feel more ready that they can cope with their anxiety. But if you knew you could cope with your anxiety and you felt better with your anxiety, why would you need to work with me? You're trying to find the perfect timing, the perfect situation to do the work, to get it done. So with perfectionism, there's also procrastination. They kind of go hand in hand because when you're a perfectionist, everything's got to be done just so. So what often happens too is you wind up procrastinating. Now procrastinating, you heard of fight or flight, right? But there's also freeze. Procrastination is under that freeze. So in other words, like we always thought procrastination was about laziness, right? It's not about laziness. It's about, again, mind is trying to protect you, right? We're always trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to survive. So when you're overwhelmed, okay, you have a laundry list of things to do, but you're on the couch watching Netflix. Why are you on the couch watching Netflix when you have so much going on? Because you're overwhelmed. Your mind is overwhelmed. Your mind is actually saying you need to take a break. You're overwhelmed. So I know you're supposed to be doing that list of things, all those chores, but we're going to go watch Netflix. Does that make sense, ladies? Where are my procrastinators? My perfectionists? Are you here? Any of you can relate to this? Any of you here? I was never really a procrastinator per se, but I was definitely a perfectionist. Everything had to be just so. I wanted everything to be just so. Okay, Suzanne, Missy, Terry, for sure. But see, to understand how the mind works, you understand why you're being the way you are. And that's why this helps. So let's talk about how do we stop self-sabotage. Shanika, okay. Yeah, she's here. How are we doing this? All right, I'm sabotaging myself. I get it. Now, what do I do? Well, we know awareness is key, okay? So the way to stop it is to first have that awareness. I am sabotaging myself. I am holding on to beliefs and thoughts that I'm sabotaging. So what we need to do is we need to look for those patterns. Those patterns that I'm talking about, these are all thought patterns. And we have to understand how to break them. So how do we figure them out? Well, when I work with clients, what I like to do is to have them journal so that they understand what beliefs they're having, what thought patterns they have, so that we can work together to break them. It's giving you a deep awareness to how you're thinking so that you can also self-regulate, all right? Self-regulation, and actually I did a whole training on self-regulation that you can catch that. I'm not going to get into that, but that's basically keeping your emotions and your behaviors in check, getting in control of those emotions and behaviors that are influenced by how you're thinking, okay? So the first step is just to have a lot of awareness and really get into understanding your thought patterns. All right. So the other thing is, like, we want to break this. We want to break these patterns, right? So we want to learn how to empower ourselves to talk to ourselves differently. It's like if something happens to someone, then I think it's gonna happen to me. What is that referring to, Shanika? Is that I'm sorry, were you referring to something that I said? Is that referring to one of the saboteurs that I was talking about? But anyway, practice positive self-talk. So it becomes necessary to understand that you're being negative, okay, and to learn to empower yourself using like positive affirmations. Not I can't overcome anxiety. I can't cope with this. I can't do this. I don't have what it takes. But I can. I can. Now, I understand when we use affirmations, sometimes we don't believe the things that we tell ourselves. So, I can't do this. I can do this. But if you really believe that you can't, sometimes telling yourself, I can, you don't believe it, so it doesn't do anything for you, right? So what becomes necessary is, well, instead of I can overcome anxiety, if you don't believe that yet, how about I am doing what I need to overcome anxiety. I am trying to I'm bringing a lot of awareness. I'm watching videos. I'm implementing. I'm doing everything I can to regulate my emotions and my behaviors. You know, talk about the positive things that you're doing. Showing yourself that you can and you have been and you will. Right? Sometimes it's a struggle. Yeah, in the morning. Especially in the morning. A lot of people have a lot of struggles more in the morning. Yeah. But how you talk to yourself is extremely important. We want to break the patterns, the mind patterns that are in your head, okay? And we want to create new patterns. So whatever you have going on in your mind, whatever those voices are telling you, you always want to create new. You want to talk to yourself differently. And this practice in positive self-talk will help you create new patterns. So the other thing is you want to set goals, okay? Now, when we set goals, we usually dream really big. Like, your big goal is, I'm going to overcome anxiety. But we know the road to get there. It doesn't take seconds, all right? It's a little bit of a process, okay? You're not going to snap your fingers and boom, you're going to overcome anxiety. Because otherwise, you and I would never have met. I mean, none of us would have anxiety, right? If it was really that quick and that simple. All right? So the thing is, it can be overwhelming because you think of, all right, my goal is to overcome anxiety. I got this big goal. I'm going to overcome anxiety. But I listen to Carla and she says I got to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G to get there. Holy cow. Right? So it can seem overwhelming. And that is when the voices in your head go, oh boy, right? And you start hearing them. The excuses start coming, the negative self-talk, right? And it will start telling you, do you really think you can do this? And, you know, and I don't know if I can do it. But see, the thing is, we have this big dream. But what makes it easier is to take everything into small chunks. Okay? I work with you to overcome anxiety, yes, but we take it in very small steps, and we don't go to the next step until we complete the first one. All right? You set small, achievable goals. You have a big goal, but we do small steps to get to that. Because what I want you to see is that you can do it. If you're going to, have you ever seen that meme on Facebook where there's a ladder, right? I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. There's a ladder. And on one side, there's a gentleman, a picture of a gentleman reaching for the top of the ladder. And then on the other side, you see the gentleman reaching for the smallest prong on the ladder. Okay, that's what I'm talking about, right? What you want to do is you want to see that you can do it so that you're making progress, right? So you're going to reach for that first prong, that first one. And then once you do that, right? And you see that you could do it, it's like, yes, I can do it. Well, if I could do that, I can do more, right? It helps build confidence, right? And it gives you that sense of accomplishment. I can do it. And you feel confident. You start building your self-esteem. And you get motivated to achieve more. Because when you see, I can do the first step, ooh, maybe I could do the second step too. Because I'm feeling just a little bit better. I didn't have hope before, but now I have hope. I know I can do this, right? So, have that big picture in your head, but start with the small goals so that you can build that confidence to get to the bigger goals. So this will help you stop self-sabotaging because you won't just focus on that big picture, which can be very intimidating. Focus on the small steps to get there. All right? The thing is to, you want to have good daily habits, all right? When I work with a client, I also talk about, ladies, I'm not just a life coach. I'm also a health coach. I got certified as a health coach as well. And I know your well-being means a lot, all right? If you don't have good well-being, you're not going to be up to overcoming anxiety. You need to take care of yourself on every level, right? So we need to support your mental health with also your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. So I'm going to work with you also on your daily routine, right? We want to understand, we want to have a daily routine which includes your exercise, your sleeping patterns, your eating, even, let's say, your prayer life and your relationship with God and everything in your life. We want to do good habits. Having good habits, you will feel better about yourself, about your life. Sorry, I have alarms going off. I'm on a long time. Your life, and you'll take measures. You'll stop sabotaging and you'll take different measures to overcome anxiety. More exercise you need, Shanika? Probably. It could be. Could be. The other thing that's going to help you stop sabotaging is getting accountability. Okay? Sometimes we're not making progress because we're doing this in our own power by ourselves and we don't feel we have what it takes. I'm sure you've been to maybe let's say the gym and you see women working with other women. That's accountability. You're working in groups to keep each other accountable. And you can do it. One more push-up, one more pull-up, one more sit-up, one more, and you're keeping each other accountable. If I go to the gym, so will my best friend, and vice versa. I know women, I'm not going to go unless she goes, So having an accountability buddy, a partner, can help you not sabotage. And how does that work with anxiety? Well, the thing is that's why I didn't promote this yet, and I'm not. And as I'm talking to moms, and some of you here have heard this, I am doing a new program that I am going to be introducing in the group shortly, and it gives a lot of support of it and accountability. But that's what the group is about, okay? Because if I know a lot of you say that your husband, your children, your mom, your best friend, they love you, but they just don't understand you, right? They've never been through what you've been through, or maybe they have, because I had family who went through what I went through, but not to the extent I did. They couldn't really understand why they had anxiety and they were still okay, but meanwhile, I was barely functioning in life. So when our loved ones don't understand, we feel very, very alone. So we need that support and accountability, right? That is why I have the group. You're in the group so that you can feel supported, and so that you can say, but see, you can come into the group and say, hey, I know I should not be in bed right now, but I'm in bed. I need help getting out of bed. Go into the group. Say, ladies, I can't get out of bed. And we'll keep you accountable. And when I work with you as a coach, I keep you accountable. I help you to be accountable to what it is you need to be doing to overcome anxiety. So in my new program, there's going to be a lot of that. And I'm excited to talk to you about that, but not right now. It will happen in a couple weeks. I'm praying. I'm still working on it, ladies. Loving yourself. I talked about this before. What can make you sabotage yourself is not loving yourself, being very negative, not having low self-esteem. So the opposite is true. How do you not sabotage yourself? Well, to not sabotage is to have more compassion on yourself. Give yourself that grace. Be more compassionate. Be your own best friend. And the last thing I have to say about all that is, if you're sabotaging yourself in so many ways and you really not sure how to unsabotage yourself and not stop sabotaging yourself, is to get help. I know a lot of you are already working with other professionals, and that's fine. But I'm here. I do work not just as admin to this group. I am an anxiety coach. I do have programs that can and will help you. If you want to understand what they are and how they can help you, reach out to me. I will have a conversation with you and see which program will be best to help you get to where you gotta go. I mean, I want to understand what it is that you're experiencing and why, and how we can work together to get you to what it is you want to experience. So ladies, that is sabotaging, all right? Before I go, anybody, there's quite a number of you on with me. Anybody have any questions about sabotaging? About what it is? Why do you have it? How to stop it? Anybody have any specific questions they want to ask me about sabotaging? Any clarity? Is there something that I said that didn't make sense, or I'll just give it a moment just in case somebody's typing. Just in case you're just coming on, ladies, if you're just coming on, I'm about to get off. I spoke today about sabotage and how you sabotage your efforts to overcome anxiety. So please catch the replay, and I'm just asking for questions. Lisa says it makes sense. Thanks, Lisa. And Antoinette, I'm always feeling extremely fatigued as I'm about to faint. Nothing never happens, and it takes control over my mind, and it's very scary. Okay. I'm gonna believe you that you're feeling this way. But is there a question about sabotage in there? I know that we tend to focus on how we feel, the symptoms that we're having and how we feel, and we feel like we have no control over how we think. You know, we have no control over how we react. I mean, anxiety makes us feel that way, and it is scary to feel so out of control like that, because we don't have control over much, but we do have control over our thoughts and how we react. But when anxiety makes us feel we don't, yeah, that makes us, you know, I can understand how that's so scary. But, you know, that's where I was saying, you know, in the group with my life trainings and with my life trainings, and, you know, and when I work with clients, I really help them to understand, you know, how to get back in control of thoughts and how they can start getting back in control of how they are, you know, responding to life. Terry, repeat how to stop it. Well, I'll give you I'm not going to get into it. I mean, you could catch the replay, but I mean, you know, to stop it, first of all, is to have awareness of, you know, that you're sabotaging and how you're sabotaging. So to understand what you're thinking and believing, you know, to understand what your specific saboteurs are, that's keeping you from moving on. Practice, you know, talking to yourself differently, empowering yourself. So having your goals, but doing them in smaller chunks so that you're not overwhelming yourself. Because when you see your goals, such as to overcome anxiety, and they seem so big and overwhelming, there's too many steps to get there. Break everything down into small chunks, and a little bit at a time, so you're not overwhelmed. Support your mental well-being with like good habits. Get good habits, what you do daily. Get accountability. Love yourself. Show yourself compassion. And also to get help. You know, maybe you're trying to do it all on your own. And, you know, it's time to have that help and stop sabotaging yourself and to really have some help. Baby steps. Yep. And baby steps. Hello, Paula. All right. Are there any specific questions about sabotage? Otherwise, I'm going to get going, ladies. I'm over an hour. Ooh. No specific questions regarding sabotage? All right, ladies, if you just came on, please catch the replay. It will be in the group. As soon as I finish this, you'll catch it in the group, and you can immediately start watching it. Take care, ladies. Be well. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Thursday. And if you are interested in stopping yourself from sabotaging and you would like to reach out, message me anytime, and we'll understand how we can, you know, work together. Be well. Take care. Bye, ladies.